Now, Syria's civil war is in its 7th year, with latest figures suggesting more than half of the population have been displaced from their homes, many millions of people. One of those is Kassem Eid, who survived the 2013 chemical weapons attack on the area of Ghouta. He later joined the Free Syrian Army to fight government forces and then fled to America. Well, he's now written a memoir about his life in Syria during the war called My Country, and he joins me live from Washington. Hello to you. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. As I said in that introduction, you fought to get rid of President Assad, to topple him. But the fact is, he's won this war, hasn't he?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I want to start by just starting saying that 70 years ago, my family, my father and grandfather were kicked out of Palestine. We came to Syria, we became Palestinian refugees. I was born a Palestinian refugee in Syria, and we were looking to have a better future like others of millions of Syrians who demonstrated in 2011. I tried to help Syrians to make Syria a better place because it's the only country I ever known. In 2014, I was forced to leave Syria after I was demonstrating and helping civil society to bring aid to civilians. And until I got gassed with chemical weapons, that's when I decided that it's time to defend my town and defend my friends and my neighbors who were gassed, bombed, and tortured for years by the Assad regime. And the fact that Assad had made military victory on the ground, that doesn't mean that the Syrian revolution is over or our dream is over to come back in Syria one day and rebuild this country and make it a better place for all Syrians, regardless of their ethnic or religious background.
But to all intents and purposes, despite the support of the West for some of those Free Syrian Army elements, he has survived. President Assad has survived. He has Russia now involved in that country. And you've got powers all over the place trying to have their little piece of your own country.
Well, I will disagree with you on your analysis and say the West didn't actually support the Free Syrian Army. They supported mainly warlords who claimed to be revolutionaries or people who named themselves as revolutionaries to have their own gains. Most of the revolution leaders were killed and tortured inside Assad prisons. And we saw Russia and Iran and Hezbollah giving real military assistance to Bashar al-Assad. If the United Nations, if the United States and the UK have imposed safe zones in Syria, no-fly zones that we've been asking for since 2011, we could have saved thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of civilians that Assad has killed with barrel bombs and airplanes and even chemical weapons. So the fact that the West has helped gave military aid to some people in Syria doesn't mean that they were true revolutionaries, because we saw most of them turning into extremists or joining groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, or actually attacking Syrian who were actually demonstrating and protesting Bashar al-Assad himself.
How did America then get it so wrong, in your opinion?
Well, this is not the first time the West, the United States, and the UK as well, see things differently in the Middle East. The Middle East is a very complicated place. We've been having wars and conflicts for thousands of years. To understand the situation in the Middle East, you have to be very objective, and you have to have the same standards to monitor and treat everyone in the same way. But unfortunately, in the Middle East, we always have double standards. And for example, in the UK, you have Jeremy Corbyn, who claims to support Palestinians. I'm Palestinian myself, but when it comes about the Palestinians that Assad has killed with chemical weapons, we see him denying the entire existence of such attacks. Hypocrisy and double standards were the most harmful problems we have suffered from in Syria and the Middle East for centuries.
Sure, wasn't part of the problem perhaps going on from that was the experience that the West had in Iraq and to a lesser extent in Afghanistan, and that colored the way that America and the West decided to approach Syria at an arm's length, really, and not get involved as perhaps as fiercely and as closely as perhaps you would have liked.
Well, we've paid for other people's mistakes. We've paid for the mistakes of the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan and the incomplete action in Libya. And Syria is a different country. You can't paint everyone in the same brush. This is what we've been suffering from for decades, that people see all people in the Middle East as same people, same problems, same everything. Most people view us as I don't know, strangers or people who don't relate to us. We are humans, just like anyone else in this world. We have hopes and dreams. We dream about democracy. We dream about living in a country that can treat everyone in the same way. We can have equal pay. We can have real elections. Bashar al-Assad and his father has been ruling Syria for 50 years. They killed thousands of Palestinians in Lebanon, Jordan, and in Syria, and they claim to support Palestinians. They killed more than 500,000 people, gassed people with chemical weapons, dropped barrel bombs, raped hundreds of thousands of women, and displaced half of the country. And Bashar al-Assad, unfortunately, is still in power. And unfortunately, what's even more disgusting is to see people asking who can be a better alternative. If we can get a bottle of beer or a cup of coffee, it will be a better president than Bashar al-Assad. It won't do the harm that he did to this country. And we hope one day, and one day very soon, we will see Assad and all other war criminals in Syria facing international justice. And we can hope that refugees like myself can go back safe to Syria and rebuild the country that paid a big price of sacrifices just to see freedom and democracy.
I mean, you say that you're actually a Palestinian.
Yes.
What do you make of today's official move by the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? Where does that leave the peace process, in your opinion?
Well, I'm really heartbroken to see all those innocent protesters getting shot, brutally killed by the Israeli army. I believe in peace between Israelis and Palestinians. I believe in peace in the Middle East. We had the revolution in Syria. We protested in 2011 because we just want peace. We want to live in peace and harmony with everyone else. What the United States have done in the past maybe decade or 2 decades was making one wrong decision after another. And what happened today will only escalate into more blood and more violence and more innocent civilians in Syria and Palestine and elsewhere getting died because of wrong political actions by the United States and Europe as well.
Okay. Kassem Eid, you've just written your memoir of fighting for the Free Syrian Army against Bashar al-Assad in Syria. The book is called My Country. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.